All right, finished. This is my porch slash greenhouse 8x8 for probably definitely less than 600 bucks. And you can see how I developed my support beams, and I'm using this corrugated, it's like 2 layers thick, and here's a tag: 6mm thin wall polycarbonate multi-wall sheet, UV protected, virtually unbreakable, 80% light transmission, excellent thermal insulation. There you go, 4x8, 54 bucks a sheet. So that's what I ended up using in this whole thing, at least on the south facing, the ceiling, the roof, I guess you'd call it, not ceiling, roof, and also on the front. And I'll go down there in a minute. The company, I only put in these beams every 2 feet, and I didn't have any of these supports at all. I had that one 2x4 going across that for extra weight, supporting these 2x2s. These are all 2x2s. But then I read their 30-page manual, and it says like it needs to be supported, for support every 2 feet each way. So I said, okay, all right. So I sliced up a couple more 2x4s and another hour of time and did that. So this is actually for a motorhome, my wife's motorhome, and I'm gonna go down here and show you what the rest of this looks like. But as you can see, one of the things while I'm up here I should mention is I first put one sheet on, and I also put silicone on all the edges in between, and everywhere there's an edge I put at least every 6 inches a screw. Actually, I didn't do that in the center. I probably should have. But anyway, along the edges for sure I did that. And first put in that sheet, and then once in centered it. So I made sure that there was enough for an overhang when I built this thing. And then put in the second sheet after that. And then I had to use this thing so it didn't fall through. It says unbreakable, but I'm not sure 165 pounds would hold the weight. But I just set on this and put in my screws on this side here once I got this in place. So that's that. Okay, let's go down below. All right, so here's the front of it, and the sun peeked out for a minute. And again, all 2x2s. Let me just do the outside here. I use 3/8 plywood, just CDX, 19 bucks a sheet. And I didn't put a huge slant on it. I think that's enough. You can, for the snow to melt off, but you can put whatever angle you want on it. It's just the only problem is that the front is going to be lower, and I wanted to have a nice tall front. Okay, so again, also on this side, and I just use this Ready Seal down here. It was pretty cheap, I think 20 something bucks a can, natural cedar. And I made sure that I coated all the wood after I built the frame. And here's my door. And I'm not sure what kind of lock, but I wanted to get a latch lock that, I saw one and it was pretty big. It's like kind of huge here. The door naturally opens up by itself. And it's a pretty big latch, and it has a big handle, and you can turn it, and you just drill one small hole, and then you can have the latch on the other side, or vice versa. I guess you can lock it from the inside, which might be better for the lock anyway. So again, then I use that polycarbonate for that. Basically, the whole frame. Well, first of all, to start with, I use treated 2x4s on the bottom. So basically, I set my foundation, which you got to do anytime you build anything, and so, you know, I figured that was going to be on the ground, and so then I leveled all of that based on the ground here. So everything was pretty level when I started, and then built these sections one at a time, each wall. So I put up one section, then I built the other section down here, and then I built the front, and then squared everything off. Everything fit perfect. I made sure I made all these things very square, 90s, to make sure that everything would fit nicely, and it did. Went together pretty nice. And then just bolted it down, you know, screwed it down with construction screws, deck screws. And then I went about doing my ceiling, or roof, I should say. Again, basically I just bought, I don't know, like a dozen 2x4s and cut them in half. And I thought that was better than buying these crappy 2x2s that they sell for twice the price, or almost the price of a 2x4, and they're all crooked. So I got nice straight 2x4s, sliced them in half, and then went about building this roof. So it's a very simple construction. First put in your beam there, and then put in your, then I put a 2x4 here to support, because I don't think these 2x2s would hold a roof. So I, you know, and we're not talking about walking on this thing, you know, people walking on it, we're just talking about snow. So I figured that was enough. And then attached it to the front. And then, like I said, when I read the instructions, they said every 2 feet. So then I put in these little pieces here, also on top of there, and then up here. And that's about it. And you can see it's already heating up pretty nicely. The sun comes in really nice. This would make a great greenhouse. I wasn't even sure that it was used, that it would work. But then when I got the brochure, the 30-page brochure on, it said, you know, for greenhouses and skylights and all kinds of stuff in houses. So, I mean, stuff is pretty durable, you know. Definitely cheaper than plexiglass. And there it is. So if you have the time and about $600, you can build one of these guys on your house, on your mobile home, or even in this case on a motorhome, which this is a very unique. If you want to look at some of my other videos, you can see how I tethered this motorhome to our house and how it's getting hot water and everything from the house. And we got to put a pellet stove in there. And a pellet stove was great. It's the best way to go for something like this. Like a house, a wood stove for sure. And we put in hay bales in there from last year, and they're all rotted. And so what I'm going to get is I'm going to get wood chips that are all packaged in nicely sealed in a plastic, and you can get those for like $5, 10 by 16 by 2 feet bales of wood chips. And then we're going to put that all along the bottom of the motorhome, so it's nice and cozy, warm in the winter. So got to get rid of all this moldy hay. That was a mistake. I should have covered it with plastic. But anyway, that's another story. And if you want to see how I did this motorhome and tethering it to the house, just search in my YouTube videos channel. All right, and that would be a Sarah Wolf. So, and last thing, you can also see I put a lot of screws around the face of this. All right, one thing I forgot to mention is I used pole barn screws, number 10 by 1.5. and I believe they're self-tapping. Originally what I had done is, when I started to use these, I would drill pilot holes, and a bunch of little sawdust would get in the channels, which I eventually, it'll knock down. But you really don't even have to do that. You just take an impact driver, it goes right into the plastic really nicely. So the pilot hole isn't necessary. So that made a much cleaner job in terms of stuff inside the plexiglass channels. But this stuff is supposed to be insulating, which is kind of cool. And so plexiglass is not. This actually has air in between. And down here you can see the channels. I'm actually gonna have to put some silicone in there, so otherwise all kinds of crap's gonna get in there. So, but you can see the channels on that. At any rate, that's it. Over and out. Good luck.